What's up, Danny?
What's up, guys? How you doing? Danny Freestyle here, chilling with Nick Salas, and
today's episode sponsored by yours truly, Monster.
They're not paying us at all. He's just a caffeine addict. He just sprung this on you. What are we doing today, bro?
I was like, Danny, sit your ass down. We're gonna do a quick interview because we're getting closer to Pans. We're about a week away. You're cutting
weight cut full effect.
Exactly. So, I posted a story up on my Instagram. I was like, hey guys, I'm about to do an interview with Danny. Shoot me some questions. And I was surprised by the feedback I got. A lot of people were shooting me questions specifically about how you train and stuff. So before we dive into that, though, I want to get your thoughts on, how do you prepare for a tournament like this where you are cutting weight? Maybe you can give the listeners, a lot of them are aspiring competitors or just people maybe interested in doing their first tournament and they don't know how to go about the process. So you do cut weight. So could you start with that? Like, what is your process for getting down to the weight class that you're looking to compete in, and how do you balance drilling time? Like, how do you know what to work on? And just give us the whole breakdown of that.
Snap. I do cut weight. I feel like it's kind of important at the professional level. You have to give yourself every advantage that you can, but ultimately if you're not giving yourself that advantage, everyone else is, they're just massive. So it's like your jiu-jitsu has to be that much better.
And that's the one thing people don't realize. Just because the IBJJF weighs you before your match doesn't mean that people aren't cutting weight.
Oh no, they're definitely cutting weight. And the difference is there's many ways you can cut weight. There's just you can just suck all the water out of your body and weigh in. You feel kind of dead and do that the last couple days or whatever. And I used to cut like that, but when you weigh in and then you have 10 minutes and then you're on right away, you don't have time to recover. So you need ample time to recover if you're going to do it in that way. Otherwise it's super not healthy.
That would be more like an MMA style cut, UFC fighters do.
UFC fighters would do something like this, but even them, they have a full day, 36 hours even to recover. And so it's a lot easier for them. So I feel the way that I cut weight a lot more now, and you as well, and with a lot of your influence, has been cutting that weight down over time, so that on the day of the competition, I feel great. I feel almost regular. Actually, I would say I feel better than regular, to be honest with you, because it's regular training, you're tired, you're dead, you're cutting weight and all that, and then it's we're always down low enough so that the day of the competition or day before, it's we're hydrated, we're eating, we feel good.
So you feel better the day you compete than you do a week out.
Oh yeah. 100%. I would say the day I compete, I definitely feel better.
Interesting. So what are you doing? So a month out, you're dieting, you're cleaning up your diet, you're eating less calories. How are you going about it?
I definitely enjoy the we talk about this a lot. I don't have any other vices, and we don't smoke, drink, go party, do whatever, and power to you, do whatever you want. But our vice is food. So it's that sandwich, that Chinese buffet, that whatever it is, it's that's the thing that we do.
Outside of jiu-jitsu, that's what you look forward to do.
100%.
We're a big fan of food blogs.
Oh yeah.
We like to travel to the best pizzerias.
Everywhere we travel, we have to experience the finest local cuisine that we can find. Usually via Instagram, but that's another story.
And if you follow us, you know this.
Yeah, for sure. He posts more than I do about the food, but I'm definitely consuming just as much, if not probably is pretty equal, I would say.
So, month out, you stop eating the Chinese food, you stop eating the hoagies, you're starting to clean up your diet. The closer you get to the tournament,
I would say 2 months out. Probably 2 months out, you clean it up, and then about a month out, you start cutting the calories. Okay. Yeah, you're gonna start being in a deficit, and slowly but surely chopping away at that number on the scale and getting it down. I only check my weight once a day. It's either in the morning. It depends on the camp. So whatever I start with, I'll keep that. I'll go through the entire camp like that. So for right now, for this camp, after training, I check my weight, and it's a nice low number, which is nice. So you get a little mental boost from that as well. I used to check it first thing in the morning, and that was it. But you could do whatever. So I usually I'll check my weight once, and then I don't think about my weight. I don't worry about my weight at all. I just think about jiu-jitsu. I don't have to worry about any drama or stress or anything like that. I just know that if I stay consistent with everything, my weight will go down, and I will make the weight no problem, to the point where you're about 2 weeks out, you're on weight basically, and you feel good. You might have to cut a couple of water pounds, like a couple days before,
like
if you feel
weight,
that. Yeah, just
consider
the
ghee weight. Yeah.
But honestly, like the last couple times, we haven't even really had to do that. So.
And then being in that deficit, like if you cut a couple pounds extra, now you can have a small meal the night before. Now you can have breakfast. Whereas I know a lot of people, because they wait so long, like last minute to cut the weight, that they're like depleting themselves. They're not eating anything the night before.
And your performance suffers when you're competing. Then it's super unhealthy. You're trying to go against somebody that if you make one mistake, that'll cost you the match or possibly even an injury. Like. It's not as high stakes as MMA for injuries, I would say, where you make one slip, you get a nice little kick in the face, and then next thing you know, you're in the hospital. But you're still, one mistake, maybe you get your arm broken, you get strangled, you get whatever. So I would say the consequences are still high enough that you have to be firing on all cylinders the day you compete, feeling good mentally, physically, emotionally. It's super, super important to keep all those things, pointing forward.
So, like, what it sounds like is if you suffer earlier on, you get to enjoy the process more. Whereas if you push off that suffering to the very end, okay, maybe your camp's a little bit more tolerable, but the end result's going to be a lot more suffering.
For sure. And it's funny that you say that. Like, I used to cut weight exactly like that. I used to just be like, why am I going to suffer for 2 months? I'm literally just going to wait to the end, die for 2 days. And
but literally die, right?
But literally die, yeah. But also, like, I felt just as good, basically, because my jiu-jitsu was trash either way, so it didn't really make a difference. So I was like, oh, I'm winning, I'm losing. Like, why am I going to cut all this weight if I'm going to win or lose the same? Like, it doesn't make a difference. So the better I feel my jiu-jitsu has gotten, the more I've learned, the more I have realized that it does make such a huge difference.
It does force you to be technical too. So
technical, like through your whole camp,
throughout the whole camp. So what it sounds like, you're not eating as many calories, but that's not really a variable because when you're training, you're focusing on the technical things anyways. So you shouldn't be relying on that energy, on those calories anyways. Whereas I feel like people who, maybe cut incorrectly and they wait to do that water cut the very last minute, when they go to compete, they're uncomfortable because they're not used to that feeling. They're not used to that feeling of being depleted, and then thus their jiu-jitsu never evolved to be efficient in that scenario.
How do you feel? Like, all right, so for me, if I'm training and I have to compensate with athleticism or flexibility or anything of that nature, if I have to compensate at any moment in my training, I just feel horrible. I feel like I suck at jiu-jitsu. Like the world is falling apart.
Whereas some people are like, oh man, look at that, he's so flexible, that's cool. Like, we would be like, I just did, what I did was conceptually flawed.
It's conceptually flawed. It's horrible. So it's like, how good is your jiu-jitsu really if a little bit less sleep messes with it, if a little bit less athleticism messes with it? You're tired, you're hungry. Does that mess with your jiu-jitsu?
That's so funny,
if it does.
Yeah. Because that's the number one. So whenever and we're going to hear a lot of this, after pans, because only one person in each division gets the first place, right?
Yeah.
So everybody else is going to make a post, and that post is either going to be motivating or it's going to be a long caption of excuses, right?
Yes.
And the number one thing I hear is I didn't get enough sleep, I didn't get, the weight cut went bad, or I made a mistake, my timing was off. So really, it's none of those things should be variables, right?
None of them.
Not too long ago, someone was telling me oh man, I lost because I didn't sleep the night before. It's but we joke about it all the time. If we get sleep the night before, dude, that's weird.
Everybody's in trouble.
Yeah.
If we get sleep before a training session, before you can always tell the days you come in or I come in and we've actually had good sleep. We've actually had
a performance enhancement.
Dude, we feel amazing. We're like, oh my god, this is what it's like to be able to be cognizant. This is amazing. But and so many high level athletes that we've talked to and listened to their point of view on things. Like you tell me. About George St. Pierre, we talk about him a lot. He never gets any sleep for the whole week, basically leading up. It's insane.
That's true.
This isn't us neglecting our sleep. This is us trying our best to maximize our sleep, temperature control, all the other things that we've learned how to help our sleep. it's still we don't get good sleep.
Yeah, but ultimately not allowing those variables to get to our mindset.
100%. And to the thing that I think it was Lucas Lepre actually just posted recently. He was like, "Oh, I have a sad story too. Nobody cares though. Just work harder."
Dude, that's a good one. Yeah, I saw that. That's good.
It's just that's the thing. It's like nobody cares. Nobody cares. You either do the work or you don't do the work. And listen, if I lose, then my post is going to be like, I'm motivated to just keep working hard. It's a numbers game, you know. If I win, I'm literally going to be motivated to keep working hard, but there'll also be like some thank yous in there for all the people that have helped me. You can't really like thank people after you crap the bed and lose. It's a little hard. It's like, thanks for sorry I let everybody down.
Yeah.
But
but on the topic of work, so that I think that gives people a lot of information on how they can approach their camp in terms of like if they're interested in cutting weight, some ideas they can use to make that easier. So when it comes to like the technical stuff, drilling and training, maybe some sessions you're training more intensely, other sessions maybe you're looking to train at lower intensity. Like how do you balance all that out? Like how do you organize drilling, getting better, working, maintenance drills, like all these things?
Yeah. All right. So first is like the approach of your jiu-jitsu. If that is flawed, like fundamentally, like conceptually flawed, you're fighting an uphill battle from the start, and everything will be frustrated. You need to stay in a curious state of mind as much as possible. Otherwise, you're gonna get frustrated, and I get frustrated like all the time, like you have to do the best you can to stay in a curious state of mind, so that you can start to push yourself into a flow state much more easily. And then this is going to help you, align your body perfectly, activate certain muscles and everything in each position. And that's going to ultimately help you stabilize each position so each position is strong. Then you build up to what reactions you can do in each one of those positions and so on. And so I feel like we spend a lot of time on muscle activation. We spend a lot of time drilling reactions, keeping everything organized. If everything isn't organized, how are you supposed to know what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it? It sounds incredibly difficult to me. And so you don't want to leave any money on the table where you're like, all right, I'm doing this one position and I do this move, now I do this move. Then it's like we talk about it all the time. Like just doing moves doesn't make any sense at all. It's the equivalent to trying to learn how to play chess by going, now I move piece A here, now I move piece B here. Now, it's like, cool, but there's so many variations that could happen. It's far better to learn how to play that game, and then you can drill, the positioning, the different sequences, the variables from each sequence, the patterns. It's so much more fun, and if you can get into a flow state in your drilling and your training, when you're drilling body positioning, reactions, whatever it is that you're drilling, it's going to make it way better. It's going to make it way more fun. So I feel like you have to start structuring things in a way where you're enjoying your training. You're not just mindlessly doing something like over and over and over.
Dude, that's huge. Because I think, when people think of like drilling, they're thinking of reps, right? And the biggest example we see is people who will rep the same technique over and over and over again for a set time. So 6 minutes on the clock, and they're doing like an arm bar from like mount.
Yeah, basic arm bar from mount.
Again. But what is the context? Like, what is provoking that reaction? And people lead that up to sparring to fill in the gap. But how do you have the tools to make those decisions if you're not drilling those things? Like, and you hit on that. Like, and I think it's really important that people know, like, that's what makes jiu-jitsu. It's like knowing how to react at the right time,
It's that gray area, like in between. It's jiu-jitsu for us, at least, is what we believe to be the most efficient way to play the game, to do it. It's a game of recognizing what reaction are they giving you and then recalling how can I counter this reaction perfectly. And if your body positioning is off, if the maybe you picked the wrong reaction, it's like, well, that's a big indicator of like what you should go and drill instead of just an armbar from mount 10,000 times. And I think that like 10,000 hours rule
gets misconstrued a lot.
Yeah, like Malcolm Gladwell and his Outliers book. I feel like people read that and then they say I have to do it 10,000 hours. It's like, well, but 10,000 hours of armbar from mount is not what you need. You need 10,000 hours of position recognition and recall, generating new neural pathways on how to connect to the right move, the right counter at the right time, and then increase the your neuroplasticity basically to recall that information faster. That's what you need 10,000 hours on, my guy. You have to think about it like math. You have to think about it like school. And people they're willing to spend all this money to go and train and to do all this stuff, but you're not willing to spend like $100 on an instructional or your own education in jiu-jitsu because you think it's a physical sport, and that can be a huge issue, and something that will just completely ruin your camps. You get mad frustrated, you feel you have to go harder, then you get burnt out more, and then your weight cut suffers. Like, we're cutting weight, we don't feel good physically, it's not the best, but it's like we show up every day, we do our best to help everybody else we can, answer all the questions that we can to our students, to our training partners, have questions for them even, and have fun, and try to enjoy the process, because we're only here once.
Yeah, and even though the topic is like the pants camp specifically, this is really a mindset that pours over even like beyond the camps. Like,
for sure.
This is
like every camp that we do, right?
Yeah, we're always in camp, right? We're always trying to get better, and this is the mindset we have so that we can make jiu-jitsu sustainable and enjoyable for us year round.
100%.
And that's why I feel like people need to like organize their jiu-jitsu into camps. Is because they get so burnt out because they're approaching it in a way that's not enjoyable.
You feel like they have to start and stop and start.
Dude,
and
imagine if your camp was you show up, you train hard, right? You do like 10 hard rounds, porrada as they say, and then you're just doing like for drills, you're just doing like double pantoriando side to side for like 1 minute as fast as you can. And then, you go back to, your apartment, you wash up, you go to the gym, you lift weights, and like you're just clocking in, and you're just putting in physical exertion, physical effort, they call sweat equity. And, I could see how you would want to organize your jiu-jitsu into camps if that's what you think of jiu-jitsu.
So, yeah, and that's why we were talking so much about a physical thing. Like, if jiu-jitsu was a physical game, like wrestling or something, it would make sense. Wrestling is like, there's only a set number of techniques that basically you can apply, and it's not a conceptual game in a counter for counter, format. The rules aren't structured in this way. It's I smash, you smash harder. Let's see who wins.
Because you're forced to play in certain planes, right?
Yes.
Like you're forced to play on the feet. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, there's so many like rabbit holes you can go into because you don't have to play on the feet. You can pull guard. You can pull double pull, depending on like what your opponent wants to do as well. So there's so many like 100%. Different ways you can play jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, and that's something that's so cool that you said, is just like to play jiu-jitsu. And we feel that if you have that mindset where you're trying to play the game, you're going to study, you're going to get better at that game. Like, imagine if it's a video game. That's how we think about it. If I really, really want to get good at a video game, I'm not going to go to the gym and lift weights to get better at making decisions quicker in the video game. Now, there is many different things that I could do to get better at, that video game. I could get sunlight, I could go stretch, I could do different things that are going to boost my mental state, my focus, whatever else. It's like, okay, so it's a mental game that just so happens to be played out physically. So we do mobility, we do stretching, we do like any injury, we do some sort of rehab stuff for that as well. But the majority of the training is like, your diet should take care of itself over time so that you don't have, that's one less thing that you have to worry about. Then you have your training. How can you structure that? So it's like you're drilling on the positions that you have trouble recognizing or problem solving. You don't know what to do in that exact spot when you roll live. They throw you in a position, I don't know what to do. Perfect. Let's stop. Let's brainstorm. Let's troubleshoot. You don't have the answer. You can't figure it out. Awesome. Buy an instructional. I have a problem with a single leg X guard. I can't pass single leg X guard. It's like, shameless plug here, but Bolo Bros literally just dropped a single leg X passing course.
I think a lot of it is ego too. Like, people have this mentality that jiu-jitsu is about forcing your will on someone. So if you're ever confronted with a situation where you don't know the answer, where the extent of your knowledge like ends, then you're like, oh, I need to force something to make something happen, instead of being like, wait, why does this feel forceful? Maybe I should invest in this area so it doesn't feel as forceful.
And if you're in a competition, like, fair enough, right? You don't have any other time to brainstorm. That's not the time to brainstorm. No. You should have done your brainstorming and your learning ahead of time. But when you're in the training room, and you don't know what to do, subconsciously your brain just says, like, no, just go harder. Try to push through, and it'll work. And it might work if they're not good or they make a mistake, but it's only working because they make a mistake. So what happens when they don't know, when they don't make that mistake? So it's like, I don't think, do you think they do it on purpose? I think.
No, I think it's a lot of things, man. Like, I think for some people too, it is like overwhelming to think of jiu-jitsu as like, I need to learn a solution. Mm-hmm. I need to learn a new solution. I need to add solutions. Like, when people think of it as like a mental game,
yeah,
it's like, to these people we're talking about, it sounds more exhausting than to just put more physical output into it. Because what does that require?
Time.
Exactly.
Time.
This requires time. This requires after class drilling, brainstorming. This is hours
communication
of time
with people too.
Exactly. As opposed to what? More exertion, more timing, better timing.
Better timing, hitting the gym more. I wasn't strong enough to keep pulling for 4 minutes. I had to relax, and that's when they
It's way easier, and I'm not putting off like weightlifting, like strength conditioning is super important, but it's much easier to go to the gym and do sets of deadlifts than it is to like spend literally like hours. I'm talking about like hundreds of hours on the mat dissecting De La Riva and all the proper reactions.
I would say it's analogous to like, going to the gym and getting super, super strong versus going to university and getting super, super smart.
Yeah.
So one of those is incredibly good for one line of work, and the other is incredibly good for another line of work. So it all boils down to, what is your view of jiu-jitsu? What line of work, what category does it fall into? For us, all right, yeah, we're nerds. Our category for jiu-jitsu is a completely like intellectual game. It's not a physical game. So if you categorize jiu-jitsu as a physical game because it's played physically, it looks physical, then like I understand why
that's a category you're gonna like approach it as.
Yeah, 100%.
Nah, dude, that's super insightful. I appreciate, by the way, you taking on this interview.
Of course. I didn't really have a choice. It's like, yo, sit down. I
feel like this is gonna help.
They turn the camera on. I'm like, oh snap. Okay.
All right. So now let's do some rapid fire questions.
Or okay.
Answers.
All right, let's go.
So, like I said, I posted it on Instagram. I got a bunch of good questions. Some are funny, some are more serious.
Did you just go on your page and just like answer yourself a whole bunch? Because there's no way anyone cares what I have to say.
You got me, bro. Let's pull these up. By the way, how do you feel about caffeine, dude? Like, honestly.
I'm not going to lie. You definitely have an addiction. And I feel like you're dragging me down with you.
Cracking up. A new one.
I do a good amount of caffeine in the morning now, I feel, where I didn't used to as much.
You use it more as like a rocket booster, like, you wake up, you just need that initial push to get you started.
I don't really know if I feel so much about like the caffeine as much as like
mental clarity, maybe more.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more mental clarity, something like that. But like, if I drink too much caffeine, bro, like I get all jittery. Like, remember the time? All right, so we were at MG's training, and I drank like a Bang Energy or something before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I literally,
I'll never forget that day.
It was bad.
You don't want to finish the story,
I ended up vomiting
That's a story for
all over the bathroom, and I couldn't train. It was the worst.
And you had like a chopped cheese.
We don't need to talk about that. It
was not pretty.
It was the energy drink that did it. It was the caffeine. I felt all right. All right, questions. What do we got?
All right, so I'm gonna ask you these questions. You try to answer it as fast as possible.
Okay.
I think the way I'm gonna edit this, the question's gonna pop up somewhere over here so people can read it. Whatever.
Right there.
All right.
On his face, right.
Right on my face sensor. Okay, so this one kind of has something to do with.
I like how the question has like an intro for like 30 seconds. It's good.
What to eat during tournaments, or I guess they mean like tournament season.
During tournament season, before tournaments, or after tournaments, because that varies widely.
They said what to eat during tournaments, so I think they mean like during the season. I would assume.
Everybody's body responds differently to different diets and whatnot. So try to figure out what diet is going to fit best for you. As long as you're eating in a deficit, basically, you're going to end up making the weight. And then there's other ways to compensate for, like, I feel hungry. Like, try not being a little baby, first of all. Second of all, I would say caffeine can help suppress hunger. That's where I feel we use caffeine the most. Not so much him. And then also intermittent fasting is really good as well. So as long as you're eating in that deficit, you have the food that makes your body feel good for your training. That's what's important. It's not so much what you're eating, but what you're eating that's best for you.
I like that. All right, next one. What do you do when standing passers lead with wrong leg?
What do you mean wrong leg? Are they giving your upper body or are they giving the lower body? Okay, in this situation, they're giving the lower body. Are they giving the right leg or the left leg? I prefer to play on the right leg, but now they're giving me the left leg, so I play on the left leg because that's what they're giving me.
Yeah, they added a side note like same moves or strategy. So
all right, so there's two ways you could go with that. You can play like, all right, De La Hiva on the left side, and then they switch and they lead with the right side. It's like, okay, you can play De La Hiva on your other side. That's totally fine. That's perfectly legal. But you could also maybe play something else if that's what you would prefer. You know, you could play like switch to a just play De La Hiva on the other side. Like
it seems like to
It's
us
just
too.
easier.
Like it makes more sense. So you put in all this work to develop like all your reactions with the lower body guard on one side. Why not just take that same scaffold and
that same
blueprint and
knowledge,
apply it to the other side?
All right, so if I spent all this time learning how to get really, really good on my right side, and then somebody leads with the left, or I have to play on my left, it's like, does all that information not just transfer over? Oh, they reacted like this. Oh, I do that. So it should be way faster to learn on your offside if you do it that way. It shouldn't be a problem unless you literally never drill on your offside, in which case, like, drill a little bit. Yeah, you should do a little bit, but it should make sense. It doesn't always have to be a symmetrical game back and forth, but you do have to have a logical response to everything that is happening, and you have to take into account everything that could happen. So the fact that someone could just change legs and lead with that leg, and it shuts your entire game down, says that there's a massive gap in your game. So, I don't want to work super hard on one side and then somebody just leads with their other leg and then I die. Like that'd be embarrassing.
And you don't want people to sense that lack of like knowledge on a certain side, and then they're going to try to exploit that and lead with the other leg purposely. So
that's a good one.
Just work both.
Yeah, just do both.
All right. If you remove the bread from a sandwich and replaced it with lettuce, is it still a sandwich?
Yes. It's more the emotional bond that you form with the sandwich. It's not the bread per se, but the bread will make a sandwich. Yeah. So if you skip out on bread, like, all right,
you can substitute the bread.
Yeah, can you have a cake without chocolate? Yeah, is it still a cake? It's like, okay, well maybe that's all right. Can you have a cake without sugar? I'm sure there's a way to do that. You could do that. It would taste decently close to a cake. It's not gonna taste like a cake, but So if you have really, really good bread, really, really good sandwich. Really, really bad bread, not a good sandwich. No bread, it's a little lower. Still a sandwich.
So, this is a personal question. So if you had to substitute the bread for something specific, what would be your preference? Like, would it be lettuce, or do you have something else you like to replace it with?
Lettuce wraps do the trick pretty well. They hold the sandwich together well enough. And then you don't have to put lettuce on the inside of the sandwich because that's just too much lettuce. You got to play with it a little bit. Find the right mixture. It also depends what type of sandwich that you're eating. It might be a cheese wrap, maybe a coconut wrap.
Coconut wraps
are good, right?
Should order more of those.
Yeah, that's another. We could go down a rabbit hole there. So, what's the next question?
Working full time, training time is limited. How can I train smarter?
Working full time, training time is limited. How can I train smarter? Treat your training as if you are doing after school classes to get a master's degree. All right. So you hustle all day. You come back. What's the first thing you do? You're trying to get smarter in your training to make better decisions. So every position that you're in, you feel comfortable, you feel good, you feel like you know what you want to do, you know what you should do. That's knowledge. So study. Study as if you're going for your master's degree and you just hustled all day, you came home late, what do? My guy, you start watching all types of information, instructionals, competition footage, rewatch your roles, pick apart everything, you're taking notes, you're literally studying. If you have that mindset, you're going to improve way, way faster, and it'll be fun. If not, you're going to be like, oh, there's not enough time in the day to get really, really strong and go really, really hard with these young guys. So that's how that'll go.
Ooh. I already know the answer to this, but this person wants to know. Wawa versus Sheets.
Sheets, all the way, 100%. Wawa. The only reason I go to Wawa so much is because it's across from our academy, and there's no Sheets anywhere around here. But Sheets is like an ADD
So if there was a
paradise.
Sheets, let's say there was a Sheets like a 5 or 10 minutes out, would you?
Oh, 100%. I would drive there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, totally.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's
no,
commitment.
I definitely would. Dude, it's like an ADD paradise. It's like there's colors everywhere, there's things everywhere, even the touchscreen sandwiches, you can do all this stuff. If you don't know what Sheets is, Google it, you're welcome.
Or travel to PA and
Also,
find out
you're
for
welcome.
yourself.